Hey guys, this is another edition of Men in Stripes brought to you by StripeHype.com. Unfortunately, talking another frustrating loss on this show tonight. Normally we are joined by Shelby Dermer, but he is not with us tonight, but we will be joined by Matt Wilson, co-editor of Stripe Hype and co-host of MENInStripes.com. Matt, how are you?
I'm better now that I found the audio where I sat there and said to Shelby on Thursday that oh wait, the Bengals were going to lose 17-35.
Did you call that? That's nice. Well, not really nice.
I called it on the nose.
and you called the Dolphins beating the Steelers. That's solid.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week for calling games.
Yeah, I haven't even seen how my picks have gone, but let's not talk about that right now. Let's kind of get into today's game. Obviously, like you mentioned, so the Bengals do lose in New England 35-17. They fall to 2-4. Yep. Let's focus on the good first before we get into the frustration and the anger. Everyone in the AFC North lost, so there's still only 2 games out behind Pittsburgh after Jay Ajayi ran for 200 yards, and Odell Beckham, although in a very immature, annoying way, has a really nice game against the Ravens. And the Browns are the Browns, so we know how that goes. I know your wife and her Tennessee Titans are very excited about today's game for them. Other good. More Giovanni Bernard. I know it was at the taste of Jeremy Hill being injured, but Jeremy Hill still got a double-digit carries. 94 total yards for Bernard in this game, so I was really happy to see him kind of get to do his thing. Brandon Lavelle turning into a little bit of a red zone market for Dandy Dalton, which is nice because we know that they need more help there. And for the first 2.5 quarters, really liked what their defensive line did. They were getting to Brady, they were sacking him. So I leave this game feeling a lot better than I did when it started. I'm still frustrated. There's things I'm mad about, and I'll get to that. But I think when you look at those pluses there, there are definitely some things the Bengals can build on, especially coming up in a matchup in the Battle of Ohio with the Cleveland Browns.
I'm right there with you in terms of Giovanni Bernard seeing more activity on the field. I mean, he definitely needed to be a large part of this offense. We knew that going into this game. The Bengals looked good in terms of their running game today. Andy Dalton had a rushing touchdown, and that was on a beautiful play. Brandon LaFell had a passing touchdown against his old team. Granted, he was only two catches for 13 yards, but he had an impact. And that's something they needed. AJ Green looked decent, 6 catches for 88 yards. Overall, this offense looked good. Andy Dalton looked good. We knew he was a capable quarterback, and there was no question about that. But after last week, the offense just needed something like this kind of game.
The Dalton drive was outstanding. I love that read option that they pulled there. It was very slick. AJ Green gets a lot of nice catches there and has a pretty big game. Like we said, Giovanni Bernard absolutely stepping up, and I did like what the front four was able to do. But let's go to the other side here. First off, the Patriots may have this game in the record as a W for them, but the Bengals beat themselves. Bad penalties, stupid penalties. The Drake Kirkpatrick penalty is just so maddening. Cedric Aboye's holding calls there when he gets benched, obviously, there in that circumstance. The safety where they just shoot right up the middle. They don't even have Jamie Collins in this game, and they get all over Dalton on that safety going right there. That was maddening. That was really frustrating. Also frustrating was, gosh, I can't believe we're saying this yet again, officiating, letting a lot of things go, and terribly calling this game. Dean Blandino's crew continuing to mess up NFL games, especially if we just turned off the Seattle Seahawks Atlanta Falcons game where Richard Sherman gets a pick when he tugged on Julio Jones there. But that's all really, the typical weekly NFL thing. It's just more frustrating, maddening things from officials.
Yeah, and then, of course, if you question an official, all of a sudden you're a bad guy from a coaching standpoint, and you're just basically becoming a crybaby. And it's like, we used to have officials that wanted to learn how to do their craft, wanted to perfect their craft. Now we have a bunch of officials who are just basically this is their second job, so they could give two craps, and they're already rich. So why should anybody care? Because there's officials who in everyday life are lawyers. There's officials in everyday life who are, you know, who are professionals, and officiating for them is just another day. And so, you know, what happened to officiating being a craft and perfecting the craft instead of being just something somebody does on the weekend for basically for fun?
Yeah.
That's honestly what it feels like with officials.
I think what just really frustrated me about it was the whole, like, at the end of the game, there's that whole situation there. And I know the game's over at this point when it takes 4 Patriots to get in front of Vontaze Burfict for a flag to be thrown on LeGarrette Blount's touchdown. And then, like, Vontaze and Gronk getting into it, and they're just kind of, like, letting that go. Where if Vontaze had really, like, you know, if it had been Vontaze to make the first move, we know he probably would have been ejected or something, knowing how they are with him. But I'm really frustrated with that because it did feel like, and I don't really feel like the Patriot way really attests the NFL. I don't think they really favor New England, especially after Brady and Deflategate. But this was not a game where it was, as we like to say, called right down the middle.
No, and I mean, the other thing that I'm frustrated with, since you brought up the whole Gronk thing, is Gronk threw himself at and now I'm going to blank on their other tight end's name.
Martellus Bennett.
He threw himself at Bennett because he thought the ball was going to Bennett, and he got him low. Oh wait, aren't you supposed to be tackling that way? You don't want him hitting high. You've made that clear. And then turn around, Pac-Man Jones hits Gronk low to make a tackle because that's the only way you're going to tackle Gronk. Otherwise, he drags you 20 yards, and Gronk throws a fit. You're not supposed to hit high. You're not supposed to hit low, supposedly. What are these guys supposed to do? Are they just supposed to hug and play two-hand touch and go, oh, can you just please go down so I don't have to hit you high or low?
It's a very frustrating tackle box, whatever that is anymore. It's kind of like what is a catch anymore, apparently.
Yeah.
Cole Beasley got a Tyler Eifert touchdown today, too, by the way. I don't know if you saw that or not. But, yeah, I'm with you. I think that's unbelievably ridiculous. But we can't put this on completely on the officials. I mean, the Bengals earned this loss in a lot of ways. Play calling down the stretch. Ken Zampese and his play calling decisions where we just don't make any sense. I don't have an issue with
doing crap.
I don't have an issue with the opening drive when they go for it on 4th and 1. I have an issue with them not having Jeremy Hill back there in a better formation. I don't, that was really frustrating.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But at the same time, this team was up 14-10.
Mm-hmm.
Last year's defense makes some stops.
Yeah.
We're not looking at a 35-17 game. We're looking at a game where they're competitive through the whole game because the defense actually shows up and plays a game. And so, I'm sorry, but and I'll have something coming out shortly on an opinion that I have. But when are we going to leave Paul Guenther somewhere on the side of the road and say we're done with it? We're done with having some of the best defensive players in the league and not being a top defense. In fact, being one of the worst defense in the NFL. When is enough going to be enough on defense with guys like Geno Atkins and Michael Johnson and Carlos Dunlap and Vontaze Burfict and Adam Jones? These guys are top tier talent, and you're telling me their defensive coordinator can't get the best out of them? Then he needs to go.
At what point does it become more than just Paul Guenther, though? At what point is it, I hate to say it, at what point are we going to look at Marvin Lewis and say, why isn't he? I mean, for him being the almighty defensive-minded coach we've known for years,
yeah,
he let this loss get away from them. I mean, he had a lot of chances where he could have really made executive decisions to get the Bengals to a chance to win this game, and they had this game in their hands. Let's not forget that, people. And he let a lot of things slide, a lot of bad decision makings. He's still way too conservative for our liking. We can go on this for years if we really want to get down to it.
But what I'm looking at this point is we've had this defense before, and this defense has been successful under Marvin Lewis. However, we have had Paul Guenther for only 2 years.
3.
3 years. Okay, still 3 years, and we've seen a decline almost every year. Last year we saw a decline in the second half of the season, not the first half. The first half they were good. They kind of picked up where they left off in 2014. But then in the end of the season, we kind of saw a defensive decline where the offense had to pick it up. Look at Arizona. Arizona's a great game to look at in terms of the defense slipping. Look at the second game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's a great game to look at in terms of caliberness of where this was. We saw a defense start to slip. And granted, you had guys who stepped up and guys who performed, and they still had a decent defensive year. But we've yet to see that this year. So the one thing that we've had consistent is Marvin Lewis. The one thing we haven't had consistent is Paul Guenther. And you've got to start at one place before you all of a sudden move to, taking out the whole system.
I think the one thing with the defense that really frustrates me is lack of turnovers. I could really only think of 1, 2 off the top of my head that have happened this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think turnovers is a big thing, but these guys aren't being aggressive, and I mean, George Iloka dropped the pick. We know that.
Quite a few. Sean Williams has a drop pick.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not re-signing Reggie Nelson was the wrong thing. Maybe they should have been more aggressive with it, and for that we've got to look at 2 other avenues, and that's Duke Tobin and that's Katie Blackburn for not doing what they could to bring him back.
Well, let's get to this. It's easy to panic. Obviously, they're 2-4. After what we've seen in the Dalton Green era, the Bengals fans were definitely not used to being down like this or losing anymore. We're used to being a competitive football team that's in the race every year. Is it too early? Because if you look at this schedule, I mean, it's not a horrible schedule. There's a lot of winnable games remaining. Obviously Cleveland this week. I think they're better than Washington. I think they're better than the Giants. Not that I think they'll win all 3. But, that's something I look at there that could really be beneficial for them. I think, you got 2 shots at Baltimore who are not impressive, who have went from 3-0 to 0-3 since then. You have another game with Pittsburgh and your house where, they let that game get away from them. So I'm not ready to panic on this team. I just think some changes have to be made, and that has to start with this game against Cleveland. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. But again, I think it starts with making a change where it counts the most. And you look at teams, and a great example is the Buffalo Bills, who got rid of their offensive coordinator, and all of a sudden they've won 4 straight. They got rid of the problem, or at least what they saw as the problem.
Oh, God, we still got to play them.
Yeah, and so they got rid of the problem, and all of a sudden, or at least what they saw as the problem, and all of a sudden they've won 4 straight, and they're now 4-2. When are the Bengals gonna look internally and go, listen, we have a problem. We've got one of the best defensive cores in terms of players on this team. They're not performing. We're not getting the best out of them. We need to do something that's going to change that. And no offense, I think it's got to come. I've not been fully on the Guenther board. You sound like me now.
I've been indifferent on him.
I haven't been on the Guenther train to really begin with. I thought he was consistent. I thought he was keeping up the Zimmer type defense. But now that you got rid of Reggie Nelson, you got a young player like Sean Williams who is very influential, and you have, he's kind of in that position where he needs guidance to grow within that position, even though, he's still a good player. And you've got George Iloka, who you've asked to step up and be the leader of that safety core. And no offense to him, but is he still too maybe a little bit immature to take that lead safety role where Reggie Nelson just kind of let George Iloka be George Iloka?
I think, the Reggie Nelson loss is definitely showing. But I don't blame them for making the decisions they made at safety still. Would I like to have seen them play better? Absolutely, obviously. Do I think that Reggie Nelson would help them with that? Definitely, but I don't think he's the main part of that. And yeah, you got to think too. They lost their defensive backs coach as he's in Miami now. So that's a huge loss for them too, because that was a very disciplined thing. There are those injuries. You expect going to the season that William Jackson III is not going to be hurt, and he's going to be a key part of this team. Josh Shaw's coming down to earth a little bit. You had to expect that with the run he was having for a little bit there. But yeah, I'm with you. Not to mention too, special teams has been, yeah. Punt coverage has been bad. Kick return coverage has been bad. Kick returns have been bad. Punt returns have been bad. Nugent misses that field goal in Dallas. Other than that, he's been pretty good this year. The Jets lost too, but so there's a lot of things that just aren't working right now. And I thought they might lose today. I picked them to lose today, but I thought there'd be some things where they'd turn the corner and we'd feel a little bit better about this team going into the stretch of the year. But with that being said, thank God the Browns are coming up, right?
Yeah. It's a bad team at the time they need it to be a bad team.
Yeah. Make sure Terrell Pryor doesn't get behind you. Make sure Isaiah Crowell doesn't break a deep run.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the big thing. Although Isaiah Crowell is very manageable. We know he's very manageable. We've seen him be very manageable. Yes, I understand that he is that Cleveland has been a little more difficult for the division teams. Just look at what they did against Baltimore, but we're seeing Baltimore even be a shadow of its former self. So. And showing their true colors, which they came out fairly strong at least. I think they had a weaker schedule to start. Obviously, the Bengals have just been bombarded with decent teams. I mean, the Steelers, the Cowboys, and now the Patriots, all accounting for 3 of the losses there. But
and the Broncos.
And the Broncos, yeah, since they're actually doing fairly well, although... Yeah, they didn't look that great against the Chargers, did they?
No, they didn't. Hunter Henry looked outstanding, though.
So, they've had 4... I'll say their losses have been against quality teams, yes. But Dallas, they should have avenged the Denver loss there. That was still a winnable game to me. Obviously... they lost the game, and they lost to a good team. We're not going to argue that at all. They were a good, solid team. However, those are the games you have to win. You have to win those games. You have to win the division games against the Steelers. And ultimately, you have to show up against a Denver team who you should have beat last year in their Super Bowl winning year. And you come back and again, it was unimpressive.
So, what does this mean to you? Since the Bengals 8-0 start last year, they're 6-9 in the regular season.
I mean, we're seeing that there's some holes, and those holes, especially this season, those holes need to be taken care of in some way, one way or another. And again, whether that's from a player perspective that you take care of those holes, or whether it's from a coaching perspective. This organization has to do something to change because the status quo isn't acceptable anymore.
What I did see, though, and I have to admit, what really Tyler Boyd played really well today. When he had his chances, he made catches. He was a strong part of the game.
Yeah.
And, like we've said the past couple weeks, Brandon LaFell has become their red zone monster.
Yes.
So I think that truly if their offensive line can get it in order, that if, at this point we have to say if, Tyler Eifert does come back, the offense can turn this around. What have they scored now? 5 of their last 6 trips in the red zone, they've scored touchdowns after being horrible to start the year.
Yeah, no, and I'm not, by any means, I'm not complaining about this offense because this offense has been...
I am. They're still terrible on third and past 4.
Yeah.
I don't understand how Ken Zampese has so many plays to not have A.J. Green involved in the game. And I understand people are going to bracket coverage him, they're going to double coverage him, they're going to pull safeties over him. Invent ways to get him the ball. He's your best player. Give him chances to help you win the game instead of hoping for everyone else to step up. And everyone else has stepped up, sure. But today, there was a lot of bracket coverages, there was a lot of safeties over, and A.J. Green found space and made things happen because that's what you do when you have a all-pro wide receiver. So that's got to happen. They've got to start doing that again. And I don't know if they'll ever get the run game going again. I do feel bad for Kevin Zeitler because I don't think he's truly been the issue on the offensive line. I think the insufficient play of the 2 guys next to him being Ablehi on one side and Bodun on the other have really hurt him.
Yeah.
And I do really believe that Ablehi is going to be a very, very good offensive lineman in this league. I think there's a lot to look forward to with him. I just think that he missed a lot of play last year. He missed training camp for his rookie year. He missed a little bit of camp this year. This is his first time really getting a whole lot of playing time, and so I really think he's still adjusting to the NFL. But I think as he gets this down and on the future, he's going to be a very, very good right tackle in this league.
The other question that I have, because we know Zeitler's good. Playing seems like he struggled a little bit. And he got called last week for a few holds, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Is it almost time to start looking at maybe, because wasn't it Bowling who turned down the multi-year contract?
Yeah, I think that you've got Whitworth for what? 2 more years?
No.
Next year, right?
Next year.
Yeah.
Next
okay.
year.
Is it time to pull the guard motion? Is it time to put him in the guard, put Jake Fisher at left tackle?
I was thinking the opposite. I was thinking putting Jake Fisher inside and leaving Whitworth on the outside.
Yeah, I could see that. I think Whitworth's a better guard than left tackle.
But he didn't really start to shine until he was moved outside to tackle.
Yeah,
he's guard.
Yeah, but do you remember there was a year when it was when Bowling got hurt, and they moved him in the guard. He was outstanding.
That is true. Yeah, he was. That's a great point.
But yeah, so let's go ahead and wrap this up here real quick with this. This team is 2-4. They have 2 very winnable games coming up. What do you feel their chances are of being 4-4 going into the bye week?
2 very winnable games. Cleveland, they should win. Who is it? They get Washington?
Yeah, they got Washington and London after that.
I'll say no. They got Washington and London if that's the London game. I think Washington is a winnable game. Washington has shown a little more resiliency in the past couple games than what I think especially than what we saw at the beginning. I would love to see them 4-4. It's difficult for me to sit here and say any more. I would have at the beginning of the season, but it's difficult for me to say at this point that Washington's even almost a guaranteed win. I'd love to see them at 4-4. If they get to 4-4, I think it's a brand new season after the bye week.
I do too.
If they're 3-5, I think they still have chances, but I think it's going to be a whole lot more difficult.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, Matt, I think with that being said, we can go ahead and wrap up this week's this Sunday game recap of Men in Stripes. Hopefully next week we can recap a very fun victory on Sunday night over the Cleveland Browns. But don't forget, we will be live, doing our regular show on Thursday evening, getting you ready for that said matchup against the Hugh Jackson reunion to Paul Brown Stadium. The comeback tour begins for Hugh Jackson.
Yep.
So, cannot wait to talk about everyone. Enjoy the night. A couple more games left for you fancy footballers out there in tight battles like me. But have a good one and hoo-day.
Nobody.